My name is Lucas Hale. I am 34 years old, and right now I am sitting at a polished mahogany table in my parents' lawyer's office, pretending my hands are not shaking. The air smells like old paper and lemon cleaner. The blinds are half closed, slicing the afternoon sun into long, accusing stripes across the floor. Somewhere behind me, a printer whirs and spits out documents for people whose lives are not about to be split into before and after. On the wall above the lawyer's head, a clock is ticking too loud. I can hear every second chew its way through my nerves. Tick. My mother's diamond bracelet clinks softly as she folds her arms, the stones catching the light, throwing tiny sparks onto the ceiling. She is sitting straight-backed, her expression carefully arranged into something between grief and irritation. Her black dress looks like it was tailored this morning. It probably was. Tick. My father's framed photo is on the credenza behind the lawyer. A younger version of him, arms folded, hard hat tucked under one elbow. Hale Construction logo behind him in crisp blue letters. They picked a picture where he looks invincible. They didn't have one where he looks tired, or guilty, or human. Tick. My younger brother Adam is leaning back in his chair, one ankle resting on his knee, like this is a casual business meeting and not the reading of our dead father's will. His suit is expensive, dark navy, perfectly fitted. His hair is styled in that effortless way. That takes a lot of effort. He glances at me, a slow, sideways look filled with amusement and something darker. He leans in, close enough that I can smell his cologne, and whispers just loud enough for me to hear. "Don't worry, Luke," he murmurs. "There was never anything in the will for you anyway." He sits back, smirks, and taps his fingers on the table in a rhythm that clashes with the clock. "If you grew up as the disposable child, you know something people like my brother never understand." Silence hurts more than any insult. Every time they looked past me to brag about him. Every time my father said, "my son," and meant only Adam. Every time my mother posted some glowing tribute about her pride and joy, and cropped me out of the picture. It carved something into me, and now here we are. In the final act, they think they know how this goes. They think the script is already written. The golden child inherits everything. The black sheep gets nothing. The company, the house, the accounts, the control, all of it goes neatly into Adam's waiting hands, while I sit here and watch, the way I have watched my whole life. What they do not know is that this time, the ending they rehearsed is not the ending they are going to get. Because this time, I helped rewrite the script. I look at the thick envelope in the lawyer's hands. It looks ordinary. Bland, even. Just paper and ink. But I know what is in there. I know what signatures are on those pages. I know what my father said, quietly, when there was no one else in the room. My pulse is loud in my ears. The chairs are too stiff. The room is too small. My childhood feels like it is sitting in my lap, heavy and restless. The lawyer clears his throat. None of them know that the moment he starts reading, everything they built on favoritism, denial, and pretty lies is going to tilt. None of them know that their king-making, their careful grooming, their years of, "this one is our future, that one is our disappointment," are about to crash into the one thing they cannot talk over. Black ink, on white paper. With witnesses, the clock ticks again, and in my head, the office melts away. And I am anywhere but here. Because to understand how I ended up sitting at this table, waiting for my father's last words to detonate, you have to understand where this all really started. You have to come back with me. Back to the house with the white pillars. Back to the boy with the cardboard bridge. Back to the moment I realized I was never going to be the son my parents wanted. I grew up in a house that people slowed down to look at. It sat on a hill just outside of town, with a long driveway and a gate that hummed when it opened. White columns, big windows, a front door wide enough to swallow whole families at once. When I was little, I thought the house was a living thing. It breathed when the air conditioning kicked on. It sighed when storms rolled in. It watched us. My dad liked to stand in the driveway with his hands on his hips and tell visitors, "Built it myself." Hale Construction. We build dreams you can live in. I learned early that the house was not just wood and concrete. It was a trophy. Proof that my father, the son of a mechanic and a diner waitress, had clawed his way up to something shiny. My mother treated it like a stage. Every throw pillow, every piece of art, every carefully arranged family photo on the walls was there to send a message. We are successful. We are happy. We are the kind of family other people should want to be. From the outside, we almost were. There were Christmas lights that wrapped around the columns every year. There was a huge tree in the foyer with color-coordinated ornaments. There were birthday parties with catered food and rented bouncy castles, and neighbors who said things like, "Your boys are so lucky, Rebecca. They have everything." The thing about houses like that, though, is that they can hide a lot of rot in the walls. I was 8 when I built the bridge. It was a wet Saturday. Rain raced down the giant windows, the sky a dull, heavy gray. My father had left a stack of construction magazines on the kitchen island, glossy pages full of half-finished skyscrapers and people in orange vests pointing at things. I sat at the table with cardboard from cereal boxes, some glue I'd found in the junk drawer, and scissors I was absolutely not supposed to be using unsupervised. I cut and folded and glued until my fingers were sticky and the table was covered in little curls of brown paper. Piece by piece, it started to look like something. 2 towers, an arch, a little roadway between. When my father's truck pulled into the driveway, the garage door groaning open, my heart started to hammer. I smoothed down my hair with glue-tacky hands and pushed the bridge to the center of the table. I heard his footsteps in the mudroom, the jingle of his keys, my mother's voice asking how his day was. Then the low rumble of his reply, the quick, proud laugh he always saved for when he talked about the business. He walked into the kitchen, bringing the smell of cold air and sawdust with him. "Dad," I said, my voice higher than I meant it to be. "Look." He barely slowed down. "Hang on, champ. I need coffee," he said, heading for the machine. I swallowed, nudged the bridge a little closer to the edge of the table. "It's one of your bridges," I said. "I made it. From the pictures." He poured coffee, took a sip, turned around, and Adam toddled in, diaper sagging, hair sticking up, clutching a plastic toy hammer in one chubby fist. "Duh," Adam gurgled, whacking the hammer against the floor. My father's entire attention shifted. "There's my little builder," he boomed, grinning wide. He squatted down, scooped Adam up under his arms, and hoisted him into the air. "Look at you, huh? Look at that grip. You're gonna run the company one day, aren't you?" "Yes, you are." Adam giggled, the sound high and bright. The toy hammer clipped my bridge as my father spun him, knocking one of the little towers over. It fell on its side, glue still wet, the cardboard bending. My father stepped right over it on his way out of the kitchen, Adam on his hip, his coffee in his other hand. "Beck, you should have seen him," he called to my mom. He was banging that hammer like he was born with it. I stood there, fingers glued together, watching my crooked bridge slump on the table. No one asked what I had made. No one noticed that I quietly picked it up, tried to straighten the tower, and then, when it tore, carried the whole thing to the trash. That was the first time I remember feeling it clearly, like a temperature dropping. Oh, I am background. Adam is the show. It did not happen all at once. It was 1,000 tiny moments like that, stacking up like bricks. When I brought home a drawing from school that my teacher had put a gold star on, my mother smiled and said, "That's nice, honey," and put it on the fridge behind a flyer for Adam's Pee-wee soccer team. When Adam kicked his first goal, there was a video shoot, a cake, a whole evening where my parents replayed the clip over and over on the big TV, laughing and shouting, "Look at that! Look at our boy!" When I got a B+ in math, my father frowned and said, "What happened to the A?" When Adam got the same grade, my father clapped him on the shoulder and said, "Hey, you passed, right? That's what matters until college." By the time we were teenagers, the pattern wasn't just subtle, it was obvious. I was quiet. I liked to draw. I was the kid in the corner of the party, making little sketches on napkins of the house we were in, seeing how the staircase lined up with the second-floor windows. Adam was loud. He liked to be where the noise was. He was captain of the soccer team by his junior year, already talking like a CEO in training. Networking, he called it when he went to parties. Practice for the real thing. Teachers who had me first and then got Adam later would say things like, "Oh, another Hale. Your brother was very talented." But they meant talented in an entirely different way. I felt it at the dinner table most of all. My father used the table like a conference room. He would talk about contracts and clients and profit margins like it was bedtime stories. My mother would nod and ask what outfits she should wear to impress which investors' wives at which charity events. Then my father would turn to Adam. "What did you learn today that you can use in business?" he would ask. Adam would talk about a debate in economics class or how his team captaincy was teaching him leadership. And when my father's eyes came to me, there was always this little pause. "And you, Lucas?" he would say. "What are you working on?" If I said, "We started learning about Gothic cathedrals," he would nod politely and sip his wine. If I said, "I tried a new shading technique," he would press his lips together and change the subject. The night I told them I wanted to be an architect is burned into my memory in high definition. I was 17, a senior in high school. We were sitting at the same long table, the chandelier above us humming softly, the sound of forks on plates filling the spaces my words were supposed to go. College brochures were stacked on the credenza in the dining room. Business schools, mostly. Some engineering programs. My father had laid them out like battle plans. "So," he said, cutting his steak, "have you thought more about where you're applying, Adam?" Adam nodded, swallowed his mouthful dramatically, like this answer was a big reveal. "Yeah," he said. "I think I'm going to go with Weston for undergrad business. Their entrepreneurship program is insane. Then maybe an MBA after that. We can expand Hale Construction into development, real estate, the whole package." And my father lit up. "That's my boy," he said. "Big picture thinking. That's what we need. Hale Construction and Hale Development. The Hale Group. Has a nice ring to it, huh, Beck?" My mother smiled, already picturing the logo. "It does," she said. "We'd have to redo the cards, but it would be worth it." I felt my fork heavy in my hand. My mother turned to me politely. "And you, Lucas?" she asked. "Have you thought any more about college?" I took a breath. "I want to apply to the architecture program at Ridley," I said. "My art teacher thinks I have a shot, and I've been looking at some of their student projects." My father cut in. "Architecture," he repeated, as if I'd said clown school. I swallowed. "Yeah," I said. "I like designing buildings, and Ridley's program is one of the best in the state. They have internship connections with firms and—" He set his fork down. The soft clink was louder than it should have been. "Lucas," he said, "architecture is a nice hobby. It's a nice add-on. But this family builds real things. Bridges, complexes, high-rises. We pour concrete. We don't draw it." I felt my face grow hot. "Architects design the buildings you pour concrete for," I said quietly. He waved a hand. Sure, he said. "And most of them end up working for companies like ours, doing what the real decision-makers tell them. You want to be the guy in the trailer with the blueprints, or the guy whose name is on the building?" Adam chuckled softly. "Come on, Dad. Maybe he wants to wear a beret and talk about vision or whatever," he said. "We'll need someone to design the lobby art when I own the place." End quote. My mother laughed politely, glancing at my father, checking if that was an acceptable level of mockery. I stared at my plate, the mashed potatoes blurring. "I don't want to run the company," I said. "That's not me. I like thinking about space, light, how people move through something. I want to make buildings that feel like they belong where they are, that make people feel." I trailed off, realizing no one at the table cared how buildings made people feel. My father picked up his fork again, already tired of the conversation. "You're young," he said. "You'll figure it out. Apply to some real programs too. Business, engineering. Give yourself options that aren't just playing with crayons." My chest tightened. "It's not playing with crayons," I said a little too loudly. "It's an actual profession. People respect it." He looked at me with that cold, assessing gaze he reserved for underperforming employees. "People respect results," he said. "And around here, results are measured in contracts and numbers. You want to draw pretty pictures? Fine. Just don't expect us to bankroll it forever." That was the first time he openly threatened to cut me off. It would not be the last. I did apply to Ridley. I got in. My art teacher hugged me in the hallway and said she was proud. My parents nodded and said, "That's nice," and then posted on Facebook about how excited they were that Adam was considering several top-tier business schools. When I left for college, they helped with some of the costs. Not because they believed in what I was doing, but because they thought it was a phase. They waited for me to fail so they could say, "We told you so," and steer me back toward the path they had paved for Adam. The thing is, I did fail. A lot. First year, I bombed a studio project because I underestimated how long it would take to model the roof structure. I pulled all-nighters that ended in designs my professor called promising but unfocused. I stared at my bank account balance and tried to stretch $60 across 2 weeks. My parents started forgetting to send money when they said they would. "Oh, sorry. It slipped my mind," my mother would say when I called. "Things are hectic here. Your brother needs more support right now," my father would add. "He's actually bringing something back to the table." When I brought home a portfolio at the end of sophomore year, full of drawings and models I was genuinely proud of, my father flipped through it in 30 seconds. "Looks intricate," he said, already looking at his phone. "Do any of these make money?" I stopped asking them for opinions after that. By the time I graduated, the support had turned into more of a ticking clock than a safety net. Every call from home carried the same underlying message. "When are you going to be done playing?" The answer was, I didn't know. I took the first job I could get at a small firm 2 towns over. It was not glamorous. We did a lot of strip mall renovations and cheap apartment complexes. I was the junior of juniors, the one who got stuck correcting line weights on drawings at 2 in the morning. But it was a place. A start. I thought my parents might at least be relieved. Instead, at a rare family dinner not long after I started, my father asked about my salary, did some quick mental math, and shook his head. "You're barely scraping by," he said. "And for what? To design storefronts for chain pharmacies?" I clenched my jaw. "It's experience," I said. "It's how you work your way up in architecture. You don't start designing skyscrapers. You prove yourself. Maybe I'll move to a bigger city later and—" He snorted. Maybe, he said. "Meanwhile, you're draining us with these emergency calls every time your car needs a repair or your rent goes up. You're not a teenager anymore, Lucas. At some point, you have to be realistic." That dinner is the one that ended with him cutting me off completely. It was a Friday. I remember because the house smelled like the expensive takeout my mother only ordered on weekends. The table was set with the good plates. I had driven in from my crappy little apartment in a car that wheezed every time I changed gears. I remember thinking, maybe this time it will be different. Maybe they'll ask how I am and actually wait for the answer. We had barely finished the main course when my father put his fork down and folded his hands on the table. "Lucas," he said, "this can't go on." My stomach dropped. "What?" I asked. "This half-life you're living," he said. "You're working at some no-name firm, barely able to pay your bills, constantly asking us to bridge the gaps. It's not sustainable. Your mother and I have talked about it. We're not ATMs." My mother dabbed her mouth with her napkin delicately, as if what he was saying had nothing to do with her. "We love you," she said, "but we can't keep rewarding bad decisions. Your brother is working hard, building towards something. We need to allocate our resources wisely." That word, resources, like I was a line item in their budget. Adam lounged in his chair across from me, swirling his wine. "She means I'm the good investment," he said lightly, not bothering to hide the satisfaction in his voice. My chest burned. "I never asked you to invest in me," I said. "I asked for help when things were tight. That's what families do. But if it's such a burden, then fine. I'll figure it out." My father's face hardened. "That's exactly what we're saying," he replied. "You need to figure it out. On your own. No more bailouts. You chose this path, you live with it. We're not going to watch you flounder forever while your brother is out there closing deals." I felt the words like a slam in my ribcage. "So you're cutting me off," I said. "Officially." My mother sighed. "Don't make this dramatic," she said. "We're encouraging independence. You're 30, Lucas. Most men your age are married, have kids, have real careers." Adam chuckled. Maybe if you'd gone into something practical and not whatever it is you do, you wouldn't be in this position, he said. You can't expect mom and dad to subsidize your art projects forever. I stood up. The chair legs scraped loud against the hardwood. You know what? I said. Thanks for dinner. My father pushed his chair back. Don't walk away from this conversation, he snapped. I looked at him, then at my mother, then at my brother. 3 faces I knew better than my own. 3 people who knew how to hurt me without lifting a finger. There is no conversation, I said quietly. You've already decided how much I'm worth. I heard you loud and clear. I left that house with a half tank of gas, $400 in my bank account, and a feeling like someone had cut the last rope I had been clinging to. I wish I could say I turned the pain into motivation overnight. That I went home, created a vision board, hustled harder, and rose like a phoenix. The truth is, at first, I broke. My apartment was small, with peeling paint and a window that wouldn't quite close all the way. When it rained, water leaked in and pooled on the sill. The radiator clanged and hissed, like it was protesting my presence. The first night after that dinner, I sat on the edge of my futon with my coat still on and stared at the wall. The quiet was heavy, oppressive. I thought about calling my parents back, apologizing for being ungrateful, promising to get a real job, to move home, to let my father fix me. I thought about messaging Adam, asking if he could float me alone, just until I got back on my feet. He would have loved that. I did not do either of those things. Instead, I opened my laptop and pulled up my budget. The numbers were ugly. Rent, utilities, student loan payment, food, gas. My barely above minimum wage salary from the firm barely covered it. Without the occasional infusion from my parents, the math did not work. I stared at the spreadsheet until the lines blurred, then closed my eyes and took a breath. Okay, if they are done helping, then you have to learn to live without them. It should have been obvious, that thought, but it hit me like a revelation. If the safety net is gone, you stop clinging to it, and you learn to walk the tightrope differently. The next months were rough. There is no prettier word for it. I picked up extra work wherever I could, freelance drafting for an old professor's friend, doing measurements for a landlord who wanted to renovate his units. I even did some logo design for a cafe that paid me partly in coffee. I worked at the firm during the day and delivered food at night for a while. There is nothing like handing a bag of takeout to someone in a building your father could have built, while you stand in the lobby in a cheap jacket, hoping they tip enough to cover the rest of your electric bill to humble you. There were nights I lay awake staring at the cracked ceiling, listening to the radiator clank, wondering if my parents were right. Maybe I was stubborn. Maybe I should have just taken a safe path, gone to business school, worn the suit, smiled at the clients, become another version of my father. But then I'd go into the firm and lose myself in a drawing. There is a moment when you are laying out a floor plan, and suddenly everything clicks. The corridors line up. The light shafts hit where they should. The proportions feel right in your body, like a song that finally resolves its chord. Those moments kept me going. They did not pay the rent on their own, but they reminded me that I was not completely wrong about myself. Around that time, my boss at the small firm, a woman named Elena, started giving me more responsibility. Elena was in her 40s, dark hair streaked with gray, glasses always sliding down her nose. She had the weary patience of someone who had spent 2 decades dealing with clients who thought they were architects because they watched home renovation shows. She also had an eye for potential. You see space, she told me once, tapping a red pen against a drawing I'd done. Not just walls. That's rare. Don't waste it. She did not know about my parents. Or if she did, she never mentioned it. She did not know that every time she said something like that, it planted a small, stubborn seed of belief in the rubble of my confidence. Work was not the only thing that kept me from collapsing. I met Malik at a late-night print shop, of all places. He was an engineer, working on his own set of plans, and we ended up commiserating over the machine jamming. We started grabbing coffee after, comparing horror stories about clients and professors. He became one of the first friends I had who knew me as Lucas, the architect. Not Lucas, the disappointing son of Jonathan Hale. When my car finally died in the firm's parking lot one freezing January morning, He was the one who picked me up at the side of the road, my breath clouding in the air, and said, "Okay, man, plan B. What can you walk to?" We pieced my life together like that, bit by bit. Bus schedules, cheaper grocery stores, taking on one extra project at a time. I thought it would go on like that forever. Scraping by, waiting for some big break that never came. Then my big break showed up in a rumor. It was late. I was at my desk at the firm, hunched over a redesign for a cramped dental office. Elena was in her office with a man I didn't recognize, the door slightly ajar. I was not trying to eavesdrop. But when I heard the name, Hale Construction, my whole body went still. "Yes, well, we used them for the last project," the man was saying, his voice low and irritable. "And they came in over budget and behind schedule. I don't care how big they are. We can't afford that kind of delay again." Elena murmured something I couldn't hear. "They used to be solid," the man continued. "But ever since the son started taking on more responsibility, I don't know. Too much flash, not enough follow-through. We need someone smaller, hungrier." I stared down at my drawing, my pencil frozen. The son, he meant Adam. I had not paid much attention to Hale Construction in a while. It was too painful. But I had heard bits. They were expanding into riskier markets, taking on bigger loans. Adam loved to brag online about disrupting the industry. My father had always liked to push boundaries, but he had been careful, calculated. Adam liked risk, for risk's sake. I waited until the man left, before I poked my head into Elena's office. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She sighed, rubbed her temples. "Just a developer looking for a miracle," she said. "He's got a commercial project that's gone sideways. Used Hale Construction, apparently. Big name, small reliability these days. He wants a redesign that can fix their mess without tearing everything down." I swallowed. "Do we have the bandwidth for that?" I asked. She looked at me. "Do you?" she countered. That project turned into a doorway. I threw myself into it. I studied the existing plans, the half-built structure, the shoddy shortcuts Hale Construction had taken to cut costs, cheap materials in the wrong places, supports that barely met code. It made me angry in a way that surprised me. They used to be better than this, I thought. My father used to be better than this. I met with the developer, a man named Donner. He was blunt, sharp, and tired of dealing with incompetence. "You're Jonathan Hale's kid," he said during our second meeting, flipping through my revised plans. My chest went tight. "Yeah," I said. "We're not exactly close these days." He grunted. "Probably for the best," he said. "Whoever signed off on this garbage should lose their license." There was a flicker in me then, something cold and hot at the same time. I did not defend my father. I did not defend Adam. Instead, I pointed to a beam on the drawing and said, "If we reinforce here and here, we can save most of the structure. It'll cost more up front, but you'll save in the long term." He studied me for a long moment. "You see the whole picture, don't you?" he said. "Not just the pretty renderings." I nodded. "My dad always said if you don't understand concrete, you shouldn't touch blueprints," I said. "He just hates that I took that lesson and used it somewhere he can't control it." Donner snorted. "Maybe one day you'll give him some competition," he said. I did not know then how prophetic that throwaway comment was. The next few years were a blur of work. The project with Donner went well, which led to another, then another. At first, I did it all under Elena's firm, but she saw the way my name kept coming up. "These clients aren't just coming to us," she told me one night as we closed up. "They're coming to you, and you're going to outgrow this place." I protested, said I was grateful, said I liked having a steady paycheck. She smiled a little sadly. "Gratitude is good," she said, "but don't let it turn into fear. When you're ready, go start your own thing. I'll even send you some of the clients who fit you better than me." Leaving the firm was one of the scariest things I have ever done. Starting my own studio out of a barely converted warehouse on the edge of town felt like stepping off a cliff. I painted the walls myself. I bought cheap desks off classifieds. Malik helped me assemble chairs. I set up a second-hand coffee machine and a whiteboard and called it an office. I named the company Northbridge Design, a quiet nod to the cardboard bridge I had built as a kid that no one ever saw. The first months were rough. There were days I sat at my desk in that echoing space and listened to my own footsteps and wondered if I had made a mistake. But clients came, slowly, at first. Then, faster, a community center commission that turned into a local article. A small school edition that got passed around on social media because people liked the way the light fell into the new library. A mid-rise office built for a tech startup that wanted something human, not sterile. My name started to circulate in a different way. Not as the other Hale boy, as Lucas, as the designer who listened, who understood both structure and feeling. I did not talk to my parents during that time. Not really. There were occasional text messages from my mother on holidays. "Hope you are well," she'd write. "We miss you at family gatherings." There would be photos attached of my parents with Adam. Some new award, some new purchase. Their smiles were big and bright. Mine was absent. I did not respond much. When I did, it was with neutral phrases like, "Congrats," or "busy with work." My father did not call at all, and then one day, he did. It was a Tuesday. I remember because we had just finished a design review, and my team had gone out to grab lunch. I stayed behind, too wired to eat, fiddling with a model. My phone buzzed on the desk. Unknown number. But the area code was familiar. I almost did not pick up. When I did, the voice on the other end was rough, weaker than I remembered, but unmistakable. "Lucas," he said. I froze. "Dad?" I asked. There was a pause, the sound of someone clearing their throat. "Yeah," he said. It's me." We sat in silence for a few seconds, both of us suddenly teenagers again, standing on opposite ends of the same house. "What do you want?" I asked finally. He exhaled. "I'm at your office," he said. "The address, on your website." The door was locked. I walked to the window and peeked through the blinds. There, in the parking lot, next to a car I recognized but hadn't seen up close in years, stood my father. He looked smaller, not just physically, though he had lost weight. Something in his posture had changed. Shoulders that had always been pulled back, chest out, now slumped. His hair was grayer. The lines around his mouth were deeper. I went downstairs and opened the door. He turned when he heard it. And for a second, my mind flickered between the man standing in front of me and the one in the framed photos all over my childhood home. Up close, the differences were sharper. There was a yellowish tinge to his skin. His eyes were tired. "Hey," he said, like we had just seen each other last week. "Hey," I echoed. We stood there in the doorway for a moment, both too stubborn to be the first to say something real. "This is your place?" he asked, stepping inside, looking around at the high ceilings, the big windows, the mismatched furniture. "Yeah," I said. "Northbridge Design." He nodded slowly. "Nice," he said. Not what I expected, but nice." I leaned against the reception desk, crossing my arms. "Why are you here, Dad?" I asked. He swallowed. "I've been keeping an eye on your work," he said. "That community center. The office downtown. People talk, you know. Your name comes up." A weird, bitter laugh bubbled up in me. "Funny," I said. "You never seemed to hear my name when I was living under your roof." He winced. "I deserve that," he said. He looked older when he said it. Less like the unshakable force of my childhood, more like a man whose edges had been sanded down by something he could not control. "I'm sick, Lucas," he said. The words landed heavy. I stared at him. "What do you mean?" I asked. He shrugged one shoulder, a movement that looked painful. "Cancer," he said. "Started in the colon. Spread. They're doing what they can." "Ardu." The room tilted for a second. I grabbed the edge of the desk. "When?" I asked. "When did we find out?" he said. "A few months ago. Your mother didn't want to burden you." Of course she didn't, I thought. Burden me with the fact that the unbreakable man who had dominated every room he stepped into was suddenly mortal. "I'm sorry," I said, because it felt like the only appropriate thing. He nodded. "Yeah," he said. "Me too." We stood there in that weird, half-finished office, the hum of the lights louder than usual. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Hale Construction is in trouble," he said. "We made some bad calls. took on too much debt. Some projects went sideways. I repeated, even though I knew exactly which one of his sons he meant. He ignored the correction. I need help, he said. Your help. I laughed then. It burst out of me, sharp and humorless. My help, I said. You cut me off. You told me I was wasting my life. You watched me struggle and said I wasn't your responsibility. And now that you and Adam have run the company into a ditch, you want me to pull you out? He flinched, like the words were physical. It's not like that, he said. How is it then? I asked. Explain it to me. He took a deep breath. I built that company from nothing, he said. Every beam, every contract, every handshake. I was so focused on making sure it didn't crumble that He trailed off, searching for the words. I lost sight of some things. With you, that felt like an understatement heavy enough to sink a ship. He pushed on. But you built something too, he said, gesturing around at my office. You understand the work, but you also understand people. Clients trust you. Your crews respect you. I see it. I need that at Hale. I need you at Hale. I stared at him. If he had said, I want you, instead of, I need you, those words might have landed differently. As it was, they felt like another line item on a crisis management list. What does Mom think? I asked. He pressed his lips together. She thinks you should have stayed in line from the beginning, he said. But she also knows we're running out of options. There it was again. Options, resources, investments, never sons, never people. What about Adam? I asked. Pretty sure he'd have something to say about me swooping in. My father's jaw tightened. Adam is part of the problem, he said quietly. He wants to impress, not sustain. He thinks vision is throwing money at whatever looks shiny. He doesn't have your patience or your caution. I let that sink in. All those years of them praising Adam for his big ideas, his confidence, his natural leadership. And now, when it counted, those same traits were the cracks in their foundation. What exactly are you asking? I said. He took a breath. I want you to come in as an advisor at first, he said. Help restructure. Help us make smarter calls about projects. Eventually, his gaze flicked away for a second. Eventually, I want you to take over. Officially. My heart slammed against my ribs. Take over. I repeated. He nodded. You're my oldest son, he said. You should have been my partner from the start. I was too stubborn to see it. I invested too much in one image of the future. I don't want the company to die because I was too proud to admit I was wrong. The word wrong hung between us like something fragile and dangerous. I leaned back, the edge of the desk pressing into my spine. If I do this, I said slowly, it won't be as your errand boy or as Adam's cleanup crew. I won't come in just to make you look good and then watch you hand everything back to him like a reward. His eyes met mine. If you do this, he said, we'll change the will. There it was. The thing that had always been unspoken but understood. The will. The official written proof of who mattered most. We'll talk to the lawyer, he continued. We'll make sure your work is reflected. That your legacy is secure. I almost laughed at that word. Legacy. He had spent my entire life making it clear that his legacy was Adam. That I was a footnote at best. Now he wanted to rewrite the book. I did not answer right away. Why now? I asked finally. Why not 10 years ago? Why not when I told you what I wanted to do with my life? He swallowed. Because I was an idiot, he said bluntly. Because I thought there was only one right way to be a Hale man. Because my father never apologized for anything, and I thought that was strength. Because I wanted one son to follow in my footsteps so badly that I tripped over the one who was already walking. The honesty in his voice startled me. I had dreamed for years of hearing him say he was wrong. In my head, it was always attached to some grand revelation, some dramatic gesture. Hearing it now, in this quiet, tired way, was messier, more real. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he added. I'm asking you to help fix what I broke. With the company, with the family, with the will. We met with the lawyer a week later. My father insisted on it. While I still can, he said. before the treatments fogged my brain. The lawyer's office was the same one we are sitting in now. The same mahogany table. The same clock. Back then, my father still sat at the head of the table, his presence filling the room even as his body shrank. The lawyer, a thin man with silver hair and careful hands, laid out the existing will and the proposed changes side by side. As it stands, he said, tapping the original document. The majority of your assets, including your controlling shares in Hale Construction and the family home, go to your younger son, Adam. Upon your passing, your elder son, Lucas, receives a smaller monetary bequest and certain personal items. He glanced at me sympathetically, as if saying, I don't write them, I just read them. My father did not look at me. And the new version? He asked. The lawyer slid the revised document forward. In the proposed amendment, he said, the controlling shares in Hale Construction transfer to Lucas, along with executive voting rights and veto power over major decisions. Adam receives a fixed stipend from a trust for a period of years, subject to certain behavioral conditions. He went on, listing the details, percentages, clauses, conditions, legal language that boiled down to one thing. The golden child was being moved off the throne. The disappointment was being handed the crown. My father signed the new will with a hand that shook more than he wanted it to. He made a joke about needing a steadier pen. The lawyer did not laugh. When he put the pen down, he exhaled like he had been holding that breath for my entire life. There, he said. Done. I did not know how to feel. Part of me wanted to stand up and yell. Where was this version of you when I was 8? When I was 17? When I was drowning in debt and shame in a one-room apartment? Another part of me wanted to cry and hug him and say thank you. I did neither. I sat there and watched the lawyer slide the document into an envelope and tuck it into a drawer. Are you sure you don't want your wife and younger son present for the signing? The lawyer asked. My father shook his head. I'll tell them when I'm ready, he said. For now, this is between us. Us. It was the first time in a long time he had used that word, and meant me. He did tell them. Eventually. Or at least, he told my mother. I do not know exactly what he said to Adam. I was not there for that conversation. What I do know is that in the months that followed, my mother's messages became colder, shorter. She stopped sending photos, stopped asking how I was, even in the most cursory way. Adam did not contact me at all. It was as if, in their minds, I had stolen something, even though my father had been the one to sign, even though I had not demanded it, only agreed to help fix a sinking ship. We worked together during those months, my father and I. I came into Hale Construction as a consultant first, then as something more. I sat in meetings, listened to project managers complain about unrealistic deadlines, watched Adam swagger in late and throw around buzzwords he barely understood. The staff looked at me strangely at first, whispering in hallways. That's the other son, I heard one of them say once. The one nobody talked about. I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. I changed bidding practices, tightened safety protocols, cut ties with a few suppliers who had been overcharging for years. I pushed for transparency, for accountability, for treating crews like human beings instead of resources. It was exhausting. It was also deeply satisfying. My father watched all of it with a mixture of pride and regret. You should have been doing this 10 years ago, he told me one evening, as we looked over revised forecast numbers. We'd be halfway to owning the city by now. Or we'd be halfway to burning out, I said. This way we might actually last. He chuckled, then winced, clutching his side. The treatments were taking their toll. The day he collapsed in his office, I was there. We were arguing about a project. He wanted to take on one more big job. I was telling him the risk was not worth it. His face went gray mid-sentence. His hand went to the edge of the desk. His knees buckled. I called an ambulance. At the hospital, in the too-bright room that smelled like disinfectant and fear, he grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. Whatever happens, he rasped, don't let them steamroll you. Not your mother. Not Adam. You have the will. You have the papers. Don't back down. I'm not going to fight them over money, Dad, I said, my throat tight. He shook his head. It's not about the money, he said. It's about who carries what I built. I screwed up with you. Don't let me screw it up again by default. He died 2 weeks later. The funeral was a blur. People came in dark suits and expensive dresses, murmured things like, "Such a loss," and "He was a pillar of the community," and "He built so much." They talked about his charity work, about the scholarships he funded, about the jobs he created. Not many talked about the nights he came home too tired to look at his sons, the way he wielded his expectations like a weapon. My mother stood next to his photograph, receiving condolences like condolences were a currency she could exchange for more time. Adam played the role of grieving heir perfectly. He shook hands. He hugged people. He gave a short speech about honoring Dad's legacy that made several older board members nod approvingly. I stood at the edge of the room, my black tie too tight, watching it all, feeling like a ghost at my own family's wake. After the burial, after the casseroles and the flowers, and the awkward long hugs from people I barely knew, the lawyer called. "We should schedule the reading," he said. "Your father specified that the immediate family be present," which brings us back to the mahogany table. The clock. The envelope. The lawyer sits at the head of the table now. My father is a photograph on the credenza. My mother sits on his right. Adam sits on his left. I sit across, my chair just slightly off-center, the way it always has been. The lawyer clears his throat. "As you all know," he says, "we're here today to go over Jonathan's last will and testament. If you want to be statted," my mother waves a hand dismissively. "I'm sure there won't be any surprises," she says. "We discussed the general outline years ago." Adam smirks. "Yeah," he says, "just a formality, right?" The lawyer's gaze flicks to me for the briefest moment. Then, he opens the envelope and pulls out the thick stack of papers. He begins with the legal boilerplate. Name, date, statements about sound mind and body, my father's voice, in stiff, formal language. Then he gets to the actual bequests. "To my beloved wife, Rebecca," he reads. "I leave the contents of our joint accounts, as well as all personal items, jewelry, and furnishings, to be used and distributed at her discretion." My mother nods, unsurprised. She has always assumed that anything within the house is hers by default. "To my younger son, Adam," the lawyer continues, and Adam sits up a little straighter, smoothing his tie. "I leave my love," the lawyer reads, "the memory of every game I cheered at, and the hope that he will one day grow into the man he always pretended to be." The room goes very quiet. My mother's head snaps up. "What?" she says. Adam lets out a short, incredulous laugh. "This is a joke, right?" he says. Some kind of sentimental preamble?" The lawyer keeps reading. "I also leave to Adam," he continues, "a fixed stipend from the Hale Family Trust, to be paid monthly for a period of 5 years. Continuation of this stipend is contingent upon his abstaining from any executive decision-making role at Hale Construction until such time as the board, under the guidance of its new controlling shareholder, deems him fit for such responsibilities." 18. Adam's face drains of color. What the hell does that mean? He snaps. His composure, so carefully maintained through the funeral, cracks. What board? What new controlling shareholder? My mother turns to the lawyer, her eyes narrowed. "This is not what Jonathan told us," she says sharply. "The company was supposed to go to Adam. We agreed on that. Years ago. Are you reading the wrong version?" The lawyer looks at her steadily. "There was an earlier version," he says. "Your husband revoked it and executed this one several months ago. I advised him of the implications. He was quite clear." He shifts his gaze to me and then back to the paper. "To my elder son, Lucas," he reads. "The son I failed to see clearly for far too long. The son who built quietly while I celebrated noise. I leave majority ownership of Hale Construction, including all associated voting rights and veto power over major decisions. I also leave to him full control of our real estate holdings, including the family home at 12 Hawthorne Lane, with the expectation that he will manage these assets with the caution and integrity he has demonstrated in his own endeavors." Silence. The words hang in the air like smoke. My mother's mouth opens and closes soundlessly for a moment. She looks like someone has upended a table in her mind, and everything is sliding to the floor. Adam pushes back his chair so hard it nearly tips. "No," he says. "No, this isn't real. You must have pressured him, Lucas. You manipulated him when he was sick. This is elder abuse, or whatever the word is. He came to me alone, the lawyer says calmly. He initiated the changes. He was fully competent. I have medical documentation, if needed. My mother swings her gaze to me like a spotlight. What did you say to him? She hisses. What did you do to turn him against his own family? I feel something hot rise in me. Anger, yes, but also something else. A deep, tired sadness. I didn't turn him against you, I say quietly. He was the one who came here. He was the one who said he'd made mistakes. He was the one who asked me to help fix them. Adam laughs, sharp and ugly. Oh, come off it, he says. You show up for 5 minutes with your little design company and suddenly Dad's handing you everything. You were gone for years. You ran away from responsibility. I was the one there, grinding, making deals, expanding the business. You were making deals we couldn't afford, I say. You were expanding us into a financial graveyard. You treated the company like a casino, where you could gamble with other people's jobs. He slams his fist on the table. You're jealous, he spits. You've always been jealous. Ever since we were kids. This is your revenge, isn't it? Getting Dad to sign some papers right before he dies so you can feel important for once. My mother reaches for his arm. Adam, calm down, she says, though her own voice is shaking. We will contest this. We'll get our own lawyer. Jonathan was under stress. The treatments. This will is valid, my father's lawyer says. It was signed before his treatments began. He was in full possession of his faculties. I am willing to testify to that. My mother glares at him. He would never do this to us, she says. Not if he was thinking clearly. He did, the lawyer replies gently. And he left a statement to be read after the main provisions. He lifts another sheet of paper, thinner than the rest. His eyes skim it once before he begins. To my family, he reads. If you are hearing this, it means I am gone. And my words can no longer be argued with over dinner. Good. I spent most of my life rewarding the wrong things. Ego, performance, appearances. I loved you all, but I did not love you well. This will is my attempt, however late, to correct some of what I broke. My throat tightens. I know this will hurt. The letter continues. Especially you, Rebecca. And you, Adam. You will feel betrayed. You will feel like I chose Lucas over you in some cruel reversal. The truth is, I chose what I should have chosen all along. The person best able to carry what I built, without destroying himself or others in the process. My mother makes a choked sound. I failed Lucas, the letter says. I dismissed his gifts because they did not look like mine. I punished him for not being Adam. That is on me, not on him. Do not punish him for accepting what I freely give now. Be angry at me, if you must, not at him. The room blurs around the edges. This will not fix everything. My father's voice on paper says. It will not erase the years of imbalance. It will not heal the boy I ignored at the kitchen table while I cheered at your games. But it is something. It is my signature under the words, I was wrong. That may not mean much to you. It means a great deal to me. We friend. The lawyer's voice softens as he reads the last lines. Lucas, he says, if you are listening, know this. I watched, even when I did not acknowledge you. I saw the man you became. I was proud of you long before I told you. I should have said it sooner. I'm saying it now, with the only thing I have left to give. My trust. Don't let my name die with my mistakes. Build something better with it. The paper rustles as the lawyer sets it down. No one speaks. My mother's face is pale, her carefully applied makeup sitting on her skin like a mask that no longer fits. There is something like hurt in her eyes, but it is tangled up with outrage so tightly I cannot separate them. Adam looks like someone has reached into his chest and ripped out the script he was supposed to follow. He turns on me, eyes blazing. If you think I'm going to work for you, he says, you're out of your mind. I meet his gaze. I don't, I reply. I don't think you've ever worked for anyone in your life. Not really. He sneers. You won a legal lottery, Lucas, he says. That's all. Don't fool yourself into thinking this makes you Dad's favorite. He just felt guilty. You're a walking apology. The words should hurt more than they do. They glance off something steadier inside me. I spent 30 years trying to be Dad's favorite. I say quietly. I'm done playing that game. This isn't about being chosen. It's about being trusted with something that can hurt people if it's in the wrong hands. My mother stands abruptly. This is not over, she says. We will see you in court. She grabs her bag with a jerky movement, knocks her chair back, and stalks out of the room, her heels clicking like gunshots. Adam follows, but not before leaning close enough that I can see the anger trembling in his jaw. You're nothing without us, he whispers. Without this name, without this company. Enjoy your little fantasy while it lasts. He leaves, and just like that, the room feels both empty and too full. I realize I have been gripping the edge of the table so hard my fingers ache. The lawyer clears his throat softly. I know that was a lot, he says. Are you all right, Lucas? I let out a breath I feel like I have been holding since I was 8. I don't know, I say honestly. I thought this would feel like winning. It doesn't. He gives me a small, knowing smile. In my line of work, he says, I've learned that inheritances rarely feel like victories. They feel like responsibilities. He gathers the papers, stacks them neatly. You don't have to decide anything today, he adds. About the house, the company, any of it. Take some time. Let the dust settle. But dust does not settle on its own. You have to decide whether to breathe it in or open a window. In the weeks that follow, my mother and Adam make good on their threat to fight. They consult another attorney. They have papers sent to me, full of dense language about undue influence and testamentary capacity. They hint at taking it public, at making a spectacle out of how I took advantage of my dying father. Their lawyer, however, is not my father's lawyer. He did not see the meetings. He did not watch the man sign the documents with clear eyes. The challenge fizzles when it becomes clear it will not hold up in court. My mother sends me one last email before withdrawing the contest. I hope you're happy, she writes. You got what you wanted. I hope it keeps you warm at night when you realize you've destroyed this family. I stare at those words for a long time. Destroyed, as if they had not been chipping away at this family for decades. I do not reply. Instead, I go to hail construction not as the overlooked son sneaking in the back, not as the consultant slotted into a corner office, but as the majority shareholder. The first time I walk into my father's old office with the knowledge that it is mine now, I hesitate at the door. The room is exactly as he left it. Dark wood, diplomas on the wall, photos of him with various mayors, governors, industry leaders. 2 large framed shots of Adam at different ages, one as a teenager in a soccer uniform, one as a young man in a suit holding some award. There is not a single photo of me. I stand in the center of the room and let that sink in. Then I walk to the wall and start taking the frames down. I do not smash them. I do not rip the photos. I wrap them carefully and set them in a box. Later, I ask the office manager to have them sent to my mother's house. She can decide what to do with them. In their place, I hang different images. A photograph of the community center Northbridge built. Kids playing under the colorful skylights. A shot of the school library. Sunlight pooling on the carpet where students sit with books. A picture of a bridge Hale construction completed years ago. Solid and simple. Back before Adam started chasing grandeur. I add a whiteboard to one wall. On it, I write 3 words. No more ghosts. I call a company-wide meeting. The employees gather in the large conference room, murmuring among themselves. Some of them look nervous, some curious, some openly skeptical. They know who I am now. Word travels fast. The estranged son. The new boss. The man who, depending on who is whispering, either saved the company or stole it. I stand at the front of the room, my palms sweaty, my heart pounding. Public speaking was always Adam's thing. He loved a microphone. I prefer blueprints and quiet. But leadership is not always about what you prefer. Most of you know me as Jonathan's other son, I say, my voice carrying more steadily than I feel. Some of you have worked with me these past months. Some of you have only seen my name in a memo. My name is Lucas. I'm not here to pretend the last few years didn't happen. I'm not here to pretend I single-handedly swooped in and rescued the company. That's not how this works. There are a few surprised glances at that. I am here, I continue, because my father asked me to carry what he built forward. And I said yes. Not because he left it all to me on paper, but because I've seen what this company can be when it's run with more concern for the people doing the work than for the people whose names end up in the news. I see nods now. Small, cautious. We're going to change some things, I say. We're going to be honest about where we went wrong. We're going to look at the projects that nearly broke us and ask why. We're going to tighten safety, not cut it. We're going to say no to deals that look impressive in a headline, but will gut us in 5 years. I pause, and when we talk about legacy, I add, we're not going to mean just one family's wealth. We're going to mean the buildings we leave behind and the lives that happen inside them. It is not a stirring speech. No one leaps to their feet and cheers. But when I finish, there is a silence that feels different from the silences I grew up with. This one is not empty. It is listening. After the meeting, a foreman named Carlos approaches me. He has been with the company longer than I have been alive. Deep lines fan out from the corners of his eyes, the kind you get from squinting at sun-bleached steel beams. Your dad was a hard man, he says, but he loved the work, not just the money. It was only near the end that I stopped recognizing him around here. The suits got shinier, the jobs got riskier, and it felt like the ground under our feet was always moving. He looks at me, measuring. If you can bring back the part of him that cared about doing it right, he says, then maybe this place still has a shot. I nod. I'll try, I say, in my own way. Inheriting the company does not magically fix my relationship with my mother. It does not fix it with Adam, either. We orbit each other at a distance, like planets that used to share a sun and now blame each other for its collapse. My mother and I speak on the phone occasionally. The first time, she calls to tell me that she thinks the house should remain available for the whole family. It's what your father would have wanted, she says. What he wanted is written down, I reply. In his own words, she makes a small, pained sound. You've always been so rigid, she says. So stubborn. You never bend for anyone. I think of every time I bent myself into shapes that hurt to fit their expectations. I bent for 30 years, I say. I just stopped breaking myself for people who never noticed. She does not like that answer. Adam, for his part, takes his stipend with gritted teeth. He tries a few ventures on his own. A consulting firm. A property management company. They sputter without the engine of the Hale name behind them, or without someone else quietly doing the unglamorous work. He sends me a bitter text once. Enjoy Dad's hand-me-downs, he writes. You couldn't build your own empire, so you had to steal mine. I don't respond. I don't tell him that I did build my own thing. From the ground up. That North Bridge still exists, running alongside Hale, handling the kinds of projects that keep my soul intact. That the company he thinks of as his was always, technically, our father's. Some truths are wasted on people who are not ready to hear them. Time moves. We win some contracts. We lose others. Hale Construction stabilizes. It does not soar into some glorious new age of dominance. It becomes something quieter, steadier, less dramatic. One afternoon, months after the will reading, I find myself back at my old apartment building. I have come to look at the foundation. We are bidding on a renovation, and I need to see if the existing structure can handle the changes. The hallway smells exactly the same. Old carpet and boiled cabbage and someone's too strong air freshener. The radiator in the stairwell still hisses. I stand outside the door that used to be mine and listen. There is music playing inside. Someone laughs. A child's voice shrieks in delight. A life is happening in there now that has nothing to do with mine. I rest my hand on the cool, chipped paint of the doorframe and think about the version of me who lived on the other side of it. The one who lay awake, wondering if he would ever stop feeling like dead weight. If I could talk to him, I would not say, "Don't worry, your dad will eventually change his will and leave you everything." I would say, "There will come a day when you realize you are not building your life to persuade them anymore. You're building it because you like who you are when you're working on it. That day is worth every empty cupboard and each ignored phone call." On my way back to the car, my phone buzzes. It's an email from the lawyer. Subject line, Scholarship fund. I had almost forgotten that part. At the end of the will, tucked beneath all the drama of the company and the house and the shifting of power, there had been one more line. I authorized the creation of a scholarship fund. It said, to support students pursuing architecture, engineering, or related fields who come from backgrounds like mine, without money, without connections, with only stubbornness and talent. I leave the administration of this fund to Lucas, trusting him to see what I did not. The lawyer wants to know what to name it. I stand in the parking lot of my old life and think about it. In the end, I don't name it after my father, or myself, or Hale Construction. I name it after the bridge, the first project, the one no one saw, the Cardboard Bridge Scholarship. The name makes some people smile when they read it. They think it's quirky, cute. For me, it is a quiet memorial to the boy who built something fragile and crooked on a kitchen table and watched it get crushed under someone else's feet. I go home that evening to an apartment that is not huge or ostentatious, but is mine. No pillars, no gate, just a door that opens when I turn the key. Sometimes, late at night, I sit at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and think about my father's last words on paper. I was wrong. You would think hearing that would erase decades. It doesn't, but it shifts the weight of them. It takes the blame I have been carrying like a stone on my back and moves at least some of it to where it belongs. There is a kind of justice in that. Not the flashy kind people like to watch in movies. Not the kind where villains end up bankrupt and begging. It's quieter. It's a father's signature under a paragraph he should have spoken aloud years ago. It's a controlling stake in a company that once saw you as a liability, now sitting in your hands, heavy and real. It's walking into rooms where you used to disappear and feeling, for once, fully there. My parents cut me off from my brother. They bet all their chips on the son who looked like their idea of success. In the end, it was their own signatures that made sure the son they threw away would be the one to carry their name forward. If you have ever been written out of your own family's story, I won't lie to you and say that one day it will all flip and you'll come out on top with perfect poetic symmetry. Sometimes the golden child keeps the crown. Sometimes the will never changes. But sometimes, quietly, surprisingly, the person who was always in the background ends up with a pen in his hand and a blank page in front of him. If that happens to you, remember this. You don't owe anyone the version of yourself they refuse to see. You owe it to the kid you used to be to build something better with what you inherit. Whether that's money, or a company, or just the chance to walk away. I used to think the most powerful thing my father could say to me was, "I'm proud of you." It turns out, the most powerful thing was, I was wrong about you. The rest, this office, this company, this house, this story, that's just what I've decided to build on top of that cracked, finely exposed foundation. And this time, I'm making sure the bridge holds.